All right, so this is lesson 1.2, comparing and ordering integers, and this is on page 13. So we're going to talk about how we can compare integers and put them in order from least to greatest or from greatest to least. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is this soccer team. So it says that these teams are ranked using a number called the win-loss combined record. So a team that has more wins than losses would have a positive combined record, and a team with less wins than losses would have a negative combined record. So that means that they have a lot more losses than they have wins. Okay, so let's look at some of these teams here. So this team has 0. So let's think about what that means. This team has 4, then we have -4, -6, 2, -2, and 6. Okay, so we'll graph these and then we're going to talk about what each of these means. All right, so let's start with the Sharks. So they have 0. So that means that they won and lost the same amount of games. So let's say that they played 6 games. That would mean that they won 3 of them and then they lost 3 of them. Okay, so it's kind of like they went whoop and then back down to 0. All right, the Jaguars, they have 4. So that means that they won more games than they lost. The Badgers, they have -4. So that means that they lost more games than they won. The Tigers over here have -6. So that means that they lost even more games than the Badgers did. The Cougars are back over here on the positive side. So that means that they won more games than they lost. But the Hawks are back over here. Hawks aren't as good as the Cougars, but they are better than the Badgers and the Tigers. And then finally the Wolves. Okay, so the Wolves are all the way over here at 6. So based on what we know from the last lesson about positive and negative numbers, we can tell that this team over here has the best record. They have the highest score, where this team over here has the worst record or the lowest score. We can tell that this is the best record because it is to the right of 0, which means it's above 0, and it's also the largest point that's over here. So it's to the right of all of the other teams' records. So this is the Wolves. Okay, so they're all the way over here to the right. Which team had the worst record, and how do you know? So same thing, if as we go from left to right, if it gets bigger, then the opposite is true this way. We get smaller, lower scores. So the lowest score graph is here. That's the Tigers. Their score is to the left of 0, which means it's below 0, and it's the leftmost point. Okay, so moving on to the next page, we're going to be putting some of these numbers in order. So using a number line makes this very easy to put numbers in order, and soon we'll talk about how we can figure this out without having to graph them on a number line every time. So these are golf scores. Okay, golf scores are another great opportunity to think about positive and negative integers. So these scores are graphed on the number line. What we know about number lines is the numbers get bigger as you move to the right, and they get smaller as you move to the left. So that means that our smallest score is here, and then we just go in order from left to right. That is the order of the scores from least to greatest. Okay, so now let's do this together. So we have a change in stock price. So the negative integers represent money that's lost, and the positive integers represent money gained. So I'm going to go ahead and graph. Okay, so I start with -5 there, and now I have +4, 0, -3, -6, and 2. Now it says list the numbers in order from greatest to least. So if I started with -6, that would not be correct, because we wouldn't say that losing $6 is as good as gaining $4. Okay, it's not as good at all, and it's not having as much money in the end. So let's look over here first, and then we're going to go this way this time. Okay, so we're going to start with, we've got 4, 2, 0, then -3, -5, and finally -6. Okay, so I'm going to double check myself to make sure I didn't make a silly mistake. So this is the largest number that I have, 4. Okay, it's to the right of 0, and it's the furthest most right. Then I have 2, 0, -3, -5, and -6. So as I'm going, the numbers are getting smaller. Once I pass 0, the numbers are smaller than 0, and I start with -3, which is closer. Then I get a little further away, which tells me that my numbers are getting smaller. Okay, so I'm on the next page, page 15, talking about writing inequalities. So we're going to talk a lot about writing inequalities this year, and we'll start here. You have used the greater than and less than sign in the past, but you may not have used that symbol with positive and negative integers. So at first, when we compare them, we are going to use number lines like this one to help. Okay, here in this example, these are all positive integers, and I know that you already know that 36 is smaller or less than 51, for example. So let's look at a more difficult example. Okay, we're going to go down here. So I'm going to be comparing -10 and -2. So I have -10 here, and I have -2 here. So they are both to the left of 0, which tells me that they're both less than 0. But which one is bigger and which one is smaller? Well, this is only 2 less than 0, but -10 is 10 less than 0. So that tells me that this number is larger, okay? We also can talk about numbers getting smaller as we go to the left and larger as we go to the right. Okay, let's do the next one. We have -6 and +6. So these are both the same distance away from 0. However, this number is greater than 0, 6, and this number is less than 0. And one final one. So I'm going to erase the points that I've already written so that we don't get confused. Okay, so I have -7 and -8. They are both smaller than 0. They're very close to each other. So I have -7 is 7 less than 0. -8 is 8 less than 0. So that tells me that -7 is the larger number. And one more time, as I'm going this way, my numbers are getting smaller. You can also, something that helps is you can think, would you rather lose $7 or would you rather lose $8? You'd probably rather lose 7 because it's a smaller loss, okay? And that's one way that you can think about that. So you can do the next two on your own or in your head and think about if both numbers are less than 0 or if one of the numbers is greater than 0.